as we get ready to do what we do best, put the work in, make sure we stay on the right side of the market across markets. Big week ahead, no doubt. Nvidia earnings on Wednesday. Markets absolutely looking forward to it. We got a lot to discuss as always, but we're going to start this session off here talking specifically about Bitcoin. The title of the Bitcoin is, first of all, let's talk about this rationally. The title of the Bitcoin. Should you sell your Bitcoin? By the way, Jordan, thanks for all the hard work and the videos each day. I have a whole Bitcoin essentially from the 110 to $120,000 range. I did not sell or get out and on this drop, and am embarrassed that I didn't follow the system. For one, we got to roll back to that in 1 second. Two, I accept it's my fault. Chad, I know it wouldn't be financial advice and that you just follow your signals on your system. However, do you have any insight on price path? Odds on if the top is in or if we continue higher. The price of the selling has been relentless. Let's talk about that. And first of all, forget the system in so much as that, right? Looking for a slide. And I don't know this. What? Oh, there we go. That's why I'm stuck. Like, forget the system in so much as that there's a difference between buying Bitcoin and holding Bitcoin, and that's like a separate strategy. We call that the cold storage strategy. And today it could also be the spot ETF, more appropriately, strategy and likely, but whatever the case may be. And you could say, well, Bitcoin bull runs is out since 113,000, and that's absolutely true, right? But do you sell your cold storage position, your Bitcoin position, I'll call it, if just because Bitcoin bull runs is exiting the market? I just purchased Bitcoin recently. Let me just jump back over here and jump back down to 105,000 $105,000, and I thought that was a good place to dollar cost average into Bitcoin. Now, don't get me wrong, and as soon as price dropped below it, I was like, well, obviously that was not the best place, the best luck, right? And when you're buying Bitcoin, let's say that you bought it between 110 and $120,000. Like, what was your time horizon that you were purchasing that for? That's first of all the most important question to ask yourself. Like, when you were purchasing Bitcoin and let's call it $115,000, how long, what time horizon were you purchasing that for? And did you have a price where if you were wrong, you were going to sell? Because in the past, go back 5 years ago, I was like, my stop loss is zero. I mean, I'm not selling. Like, I'm buying Bitcoin. I know it's volatile, and my stop loss is zero, meaning that this is a risk I take when I made this investment, and I was willing to lose all of that investment if I was wrong. Now, were the odds of Bitcoin going to zero 5 years ago? What were they? Are they higher or lower today? And I would say that they're significantly lower now than they were 5 years ago. I think that Bitcoin was a much more risky investment 5 years ago, and a lot more volatile investment than it was 5 years ago. Jordan, it's off 25% in just a few weeks. Yeah, for sure. And it reminds us of what we just went through in April, where we saw in a few weeks, Bitcoin was off 30%. And it's that volatility. Jordan, you said there's diminishing volatility. Absolutely believe it. Did you notice, or have you heard, because I'm sure you've seen a lot of information over the weekend, um, did you see that? And that's what I was looking for. Ace, if you could put it into the chat, please. I was looking for the flows into the spot ETFs. I understood. I don't know what happens after today's session, but I understood over the weekend that the outflows were very minimal out of the spot ETFs. I'm interested to get a better read on that. I would like to see that. I know that a lot of people are incredibly bearish right now, specifically and especially as Bitcoin trades underneath the weekly 50 SMA. Bitcoin just put in a death cross, by the way. Let's just jump over here really quick, and let's just say this is of no help whatsoever. The fact that Bitcoin just made a death cross. It's basically a little bit better than a 50% odds. And going out 1 year later, it's only 50%. 50%, Jordan. Most of our templates have a probability of less than 50%. What are you talking about? That's absolutely true. So listen, a year from now, after a death cross, either you're up significantly or you're down significantly. There it is right there. A lot of people believe that we're headed into 2026 recession. Okay, here we're going to start just feeding in things over here. And you probably saw on Twitter this morning, I posted that, well, the soft data is improving, right? And the hard data is just maintaining, but we've seen a significant improvement around the time of the cut. Do you remember right over here and specifically, we were worried, well, now that we see the hard data declining and catching up to the soft data, what happens next really matters, because in the past that leads to us to know whether or not the Fed is cutting into a recession and or cutting into normalization. The problem, the importance of that, sorry, I'm just trying to get off that orange color. I don't like that orange color. Here we go. All right. Now, the importance of this is that when the Fed's cutting into recession, roughly 12 months later, S&P 500 is off 12%, 11%. And when they're cutting into normalization, it's up 12, 13%. So it really matters when they're cutting, whether or not they're cutting into normalization and or recession. By the way, I posted it on Twitter this morning as well. I thought that was going to be it. It's not it. What the vice Fed chair said today, that he believes into the end of the year, we're going to see a stabilization in the jobs data. Do you remember that? That's something that I've been saying, that I feel like we're going to see not a favorable return of jobs, but a stabilization. Like we've seen that massive decline and dwindling, and I like that. And there you go. It seems that that's happening over here. We know coming into 2026, we're so close, right? A lot of things are happening. Amongst them is that we have the big beautiful bill, which is let's say uber stimulative into 2026. We know that the Fed is going from this tight monetary policy, and they've begun easing, so far lowering another 50 basis points. They're expected to continue that as a new Fed chair and board takes shape and place in 2026, and they're stopping quantitative tightening in December, and they're expected to begin growing their balance sheet. So a lot of those things are, let's say, going from restrictive to more stimulative. By the way, NVIDIA is the highlight of this week. It really matters what their earnings are. But as we look at earnings and what we've seen, and so I have to jump over here really quick, and maybe I can pick up the slide right over here. And this is, I think it's important just to note, and maybe some of you missed this. So I want to, here we go. Steven's got some numbers over here. That's what I was looking for, the Farsides data. And $1.6 billion of outflows. Yeah, so that's not so bad, is it? Jordan, what are you talking about? It's a lot of the ETFs are for sure follow the momentum of price. Steven, how is that? I should just pull it up so I could talk about it with you all. Let me take 1 second here and let me pull it up. And our side, Bitcoin. And what I want to do is look back until where we were in April. And this was during the great, here we go. This was during the great Bitcoin 30% correction. We were at, by the way, $40 billion inside the ETFs. And then we traded down to, I don't know, it looks somewhere around 35 billion. We are significantly above that on this correction. That's a good look. And yeah, we've come off a little bit, but holding steady. And yeah, not so bad. Yeah, Joel, we'll do that. Absolutely. We'll do that quick. I think that's part of the conversation. I think that's really important, and it's timely also. Let me just go back over to here. Bitcoin under pressure, no doubt about it. People are looking at if we get two weekly closes below the SMA at the 50 the weekly SMA bear market, you're looking from there 12-month typical correction and significantly lower prices. I've seen people talk about, for example, and this is on the far end, right? This is on the, you know, I've seen people say, trying to think of his names, it's this German guy that's friends with Willy Woo. He's talking about like Bitcoin could go under $10,000. We have seen in the past the bear market where, and could that happen if we were to enter into like a deflationary uh debt spiral? Yeah. But guess what? That like are we looking at like a lot of inflationary forces, or are we looking at deflationary forces? Yeah, that's what I was looking at. So to call it fair, he's like we could see easily under $10,000 Bitcoin. Listen, we have seen before price go underneath the previous cycle high. So I have not over here at 69,000, but this is before the halving over here. And we have $73,000 Bitcoin. And you can see that we have retested that area over here, 75. Is it possible that we trade underneath? That was during April, huh? During the April, Trump deciding that he wanted to go ahead and throw tariffs out on the world, including islands that have penguins. And is it possible we trade below it? As you all know previously, in the last cycle, we traded below the previous cycle ceiling. You had over here the previous cycle ceiling was over here at 19,168. And then in the bear market of 2022, we traded below the previous cycle high. It's happened before, and it was what allowed me to be able to line up what was the bull market breakout in December of 2022 when price was able to trade back above it. And I put that at 17,250, not the highest price point, but where price found that resistance. And I was able to say that, you know what, it's not a fact of that price was trading below it. We saw obviously a blow up of many crypto hedge funds, including Three Arrows. We saw FTX going under, the demise of Celsius and BlockFi. There was a lot of carnage, in the space at the time. Is that happening now? I wonder. I pose and ask questions. So we can trade. It's not an absolute, and we have traded below the previous cycle all-time high. We just recently confirmed it as support. If we were to trade below it again, that point you're looking already at what is a significant drawdown on Bitcoin, and that's about 40%. Now, I have said, and I stand by, that we are seeing and going to see diminished volatility that works on both the downside and on the upside. However, that I believe during this particular moment, as we've gone into the early majority of the S curve, and there's a significant change in adoption. By the way, Sailor's still at the bid. And, if you were to see, because in 2025, probably there are two main stories. The first main story is that there's a new buyer, and it's been a corporate buyer, and they have bought billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. And then the other end of this, the story is that there's been a lot of distribution between people who have been holding on Bitcoin for several plus years, right? If the buyers were to leave the market, that's not good. Supply and demand, right? We haven't seen signs of that happening yet. And again, even right now under distress, Sailor just purchased another the rough number, I don't know, but $800 million worth of Bitcoin. And then are we going to see, and are we seeing for like further escalation of selling from those OG wallets? Or now that we're 100,000, I think it's going to be worthy to note whether or not they pull up and stop. Those are two things that need to be watched. And don't forget, like, the bullish case for Bitcoin has been the bullish case for Bitcoin is the continued devaluation of the underlying. That's going to accelerate. Fed is, by the way, moving towards easing as rates are as anyway. Fed's moving towards easing. I lost my other thought now. Anyway, David is asking, what about putting a limit order at 75,000? I mean, listen, so bringing it back to the original conversation. And the original conversation was that 835 million. I was off a little bit, Ace. Like, what do I do? So the most important thing was, when you purchase Bitcoin, what was your time horizon? Were you looking to sell at the top of this cycle? And if you're looking to time the market, then you should be using CTM templates. No question about it. We'll get into 107, 101, buy side only in a moment. And then the second thing is, what's your exit? What's your stop loss? Like, where are you wrong? How much of that investment are you looking to lose? If Bitcoin trades from that $115,000 down to 55,000, Bitcoin is cheap. Do you think that something is fundamentally flawed with Bitcoin, that when you originally made that investment has changed, and that's it? You're taking a hit of 50% of your investment? Or are you looking for the opportunity to lower your cost basis? If you are like, do you think Bitcoin's going to $1 million? Do you think it's stopping there? What's your time horizon for this particular investment? And if you have the opportunity, and if you do think that it's going to $1 million, notice I'm not saying 250,000. Notice I'm not saying 500,000. And I think those are all going to be tremendous milestones along the way. But if you have the opportunity, or if you do believe that that is going to happen, then $115,000 Bitcoin is actually cheap, as well as anything under it remains to be. And do you think that dollar cost averaging to lower your cost basis anytime that you have the opportunity and prices below your cost basis is a good idea? Do you think that putting a limit order, maybe this is a liquidity grab and this area is tested again? Maybe it's tested lower, right? Like, is that a good time to add to your position? And are you selling at $55,000 Bitcoin because you lost 50% of your investment? Or are you actually using that as an opportunity to significantly lower your cost basis and then thinking, I absolutely believe in this investment. I will change my mind if something changes. If Kamala Harris is elected in 2028 and they outlaw on-ramps and off-ramps into Bitcoin, they put a SEC chairman who is going to be a czar against Bitcoin, against Bitcoin and crypto, you may at that point want to rethink your investment horizon and timeline. How old are you? Are you in retirement now? Do you have like the opportunity to be taking such volatile and risky investments? Because it is volatile. If you're in retirement and you have something that's going to potentially correct anywhere between, I think I've put a bear market, my own, and I don't think this correction happens without price coming off an acceleration first, is between 40 and 60%. That's my expectation. Beyond that, I was completely wrong about my diminishing volatility theory. I don't think I am. These are the questions that really you need to be asking and thinking about. Really, that you need to be asking and thinking about. By the way, what has happened to cause this? Let's just take a look over here. and jump back first of all to over here, and we were saying that we have over here. Look at this. This is this trend line that we're currently watching for a breakout. Some people are saying, well, if we get back above the 50 weekly SMA, roughly 103,000, then and we don't get 2 closes below. I don't think it matters if it's 2, 3, 4 closes below or anything like that personally, that at that point you have to flip back bullish. I would look at the charts and say, you know what, actually 103,000, I'm still underneath this resistance. I have to break above this wedge resistance in order to turn and say that momentum is beginning to kick up again. And then I have over here just a simple at 107. You could see that horizontal resistance off of the last swing high and over here off of that other swing low. So that's below and resistance. If you were to shoot straight up on Nvidia earnings, you got to break above those things in order to see momentum beginning to switch the other way. Now, if I were to see an underbelly breakout over here, this is an early opportunity to actually take on risk. And then into that resistance, you're able to actually lock in that risk that you were taking. By the way, if I go, this is what we were looking at together on Friday. And now if I come down to where we wicked below, you can see that that's exactly where the market has been paying attention. So I'm going to move it down over here because this is where the market is currently paying attention to. And you could see, and fair enough over here and in those lines, it is both, right? There's no doubt about it. You could see again, here's the touches, but the market seems to me to be paying attention over here. I think a close above that is the earliest opportunity for to see some type of recovery in place if that were to happen, right? But until then, momentum is kicking to the downside. We are on the sideline. Buy side boost crew, who just oh, by the way, this is what I wanted to say. At this moment over here on this Wednesday, the 26th, we were close to continuing to move up to new highs. That's the same day over here that Powell actually, let me just try to find this chart over here, that Powell was like, I don't know if we're cutting in December. And since then, the markets have been in correction. You can see right now, NASDAQ is flirting with our first technical breakdown since making that new all-time highs. Close below here. Bulls, yeah, obviously we're not able to defend. Bears have then to take that opportunity to consolidate and accelerate their momentum. It's going to be difficult ahead of Nvidia's earnings, I think, and specifically after. And it's a very important event this week, no doubt about it. The most important event ahead is not like Thursday's unemployment claims. It's going to be after the holiday week of Thanksgiving in the US. It's going to be this week when we get all of the jobs data. That's likely going to decide whether or not the Fed does cut in December or not, which is going to be basically coming down to the wire. Don't forget also the 28th of November is the release of the Fed Beige Book. That's going to give a better idea for us what is taking place and what's going on with the economy. So the next 2 weeks, even though there's a holiday week, has a massive amount of importance. We're going to get the Fed Beige Book, and then the first week of December, all the jobs data. If the Fed is not cutting here and the Fed pauses, market, you could see him very clearly, has been correcting ever since Powell changed expectations for the market. There is the possibility and potential that there could continue to be under pressure. Fed stops QT in December, even if they begin right away making that balance sheet start expanding upwards. It's going to take a moment here for this to actually, affect the market in a positive way. And don't forget, like Bitcoin is likely lagging down that risk curve. It's not going to first affect Bitcoin, likely. Yeah, I mean, Peter Thiel sold Nvidia. I think Nvidia is probably one of the most, let's say, man, if Nvidia is a low bar here, If you look at what the data builds are expected through the end of the decade, NVIDIA, regardless if there's some saturation from other players, Intel, AMD, whatever have you, like the people are still going to need to be spending a massive amount of money on NVIDIA's chips. I don't make anything of Peter Thiel doing that. He also obviously, and it's not looking like the best timing at this moment, but he's a heavy investor into Bitmine and another Ethereum treasury company. He's got a great track record with the Facebook and turning a $500 million into a fortune, or I should say, it was only 500,000, $500,000 into over $1 billion. His Roth IRA is probably one of the, well, it is the best ever on record. The guy is obviously brilliant, but we've seen Buffett make mistakes. And by the way, speaking of Buffett, let me just jump over here and get this one point out of the way that I did want to make. And we saw it over here. You should see that it was just released that Buffett just purchased a bunch, $17.8 million stake in Google, right? So this is the most conservative value investor on the planet. He's so defensive that he has had record pile of cash since 2020, which has grown substantially since. And here he is, as people are saying, oh, the AI boom is an AI bubble. And Warren is not known for investing into bubbles. He is known to actually be investing into what is deemed to be value plays. You have to ask yourself who's on the right side of history here. Is AI a bubble that Warren is at the end of his career piling into, or not? Let's leave it there. So jumping back over here. This could, by the way, if the job data comes in benign, and then we do see the Fed move towards pricing in a cut in December, and they cut in December, markets likely respond very well to that. This is some short-term time horizon, in so much as that expectations are very strongly that as Powell moves out, the next Fed board is going to be a lot more dovish. We are going to see Fed funds coming down. We're seeing that balance sheet expansion, and we are seeing a lot of stimulus ahead from the big beautiful bill into 2026. We are seeing signs, and it's too early to tell. I just showed you soft data improvement. Hard data has improved significantly ever since the Fed began cutting. And we were worried that if it's into a recession, you were going to see a further deterioration right at this particular juncture. That's not what's happened. And all signs are pointing towards a reacceleration into 2026. Amongst them is the continued spending and build out of all these data centers. And yes, there's the concern and worry about where's the energy to run them going to come from. But listen, that's like, they're going to find a way. They have no other choice. This is what they believe is the most important, let's say, I lost the words. Anyway, I'll just have to keep going. Let me just jump over really quick. Dollar here, as the Fed is expected right now, 60% chance on hold, holding the breakout, retest of the channel, resumption up, break below here. I see softer dollar until because I think eventually the Fed is going to move towards further rate cuts. And when that does, I think that will weaken the dollar. Of course, those people that believe that we're about to see the potential of Bitcoin under 10,000 do believe that we could see a significantly strong dollar into 2026. We'll find out. I think that I wanted to show you over here. We were looking at IREN on Friday, and you could see right into the underbelly a rejection so far. Something to watch for. I said I would wait for the outer edge right, above 50 in order to look for that a little less aggressive than on Bitcoin. That might be wrong in so much as that I would expect if there's any type of rebound in sentiment in the markets that we do see it come into tech before Bitcoin, but we'll be watching. Just jumping back over here to Bitcoin, and listen, this is a lot different story than it was in October as Bitcoin was up and to the right. And whenever Bitcoin is up to the right, people are like, oh, all those I should do is buy and hold. And that's one strategy. And I do think that as a hedge against the system, that makes sense. I was watching a video that Cabby had shared this morning, and he's talking about like the potential, much like when gold was made illegal in the US and confiscated, that they then overnight repriced the price of gold. And that is the plan that what they're looking to do with this monetary reset, including Bitcoin, and overnight the US could reprice the price of Bitcoin to $1 million per Bitcoin. And whether that could happen or not, that's why you have that portion in cold storage in the spot ETFs. That's buy and hold. And I think that's the correct thing to do. But again, just remember what happened in 2021. The great Ray Dalio was telling everybody to buy China. And since 2021, and since Ray told everyone to buy China, China has been an absolute train wreck. And even the best of the best are not able to predict with certainty what's going to happen in the future. And you don't know what's going to happen with Bitcoin in the future. And if Bitcoin were to trade down towards something like what I would deem to be crazy, 55,000 Bitcoin is cheap, right? Something before the election victory of a favorable administration towards Bitcoin and crypto, which has then seen the passage of the Genius Act. It's hard to imagine a world where the Genius Act and as far plan comes to fruition, as far as the let's say the gain in market share across the world of stablecoins, specifically U.S. dollar stablecoins tied to the treasury market, without seeing Bitcoin being successful. There is a direct correlation between the price of Bitcoin and the market cap of stablecoins. But if you were to see Bitcoin trade below the election, that would be something that would be completely off, in my opinion. What is, by the way, just a correction from the all-time high to where we had on the election, 50%, right? So whatever the point of all this was, I digress, and we'll continue forward. That I mean, listen, that's up to you and what your strategy is. I think that Bitcoin is going to be making new all-time highs into 2026. I feel very confident about that. Very confident about that. I don't know what you think. And you say 24 months. Bitcoin has never gone through a 24 beyond a disappointment. Which gap are you looking for? The one at $9,400, $9,600, or I mean, I'm not sure which gap you're looking at, but what I do want to show you is this, and you could say, well, hold on one second. Let me just get through a couple of slides. This is pretty important. We're watching two different channels. This trendline break that currently is underway, right? You can see we've had a breakout, a retest, and now resuming down. That's not good. And it also shows the significance of that line. And then you all know that the other parallel channel starts with the bottom test of the resistance here and here. That comes in right now around $88,000. And first of all, the earliest sign of a recovery outside of the underbelly that we were looking at is also going to be getting back above this line. That's a repair now that we're seeing breakdowns that needs to be made. If we trade below 88,000, that for me is a massive technical breakdown. I've pointed out the significance of that from you from right over here. And then also, and when I say de-risk, what does that mean? And what does that mean to you? For some people, that might be a place that they're looking to begin dollar cost averaging in. I think for everyone, and if anyone has any type of leverage out there, that's what a de-risk event means. It means something's wrong. You need to take precautions. Some people might be taking out loans out on strike or somewhere else. If you have a loan out there, it's the time to either pay it off or tighten up that loan to value ratio. That's what a de-risk event means for me personally. My own thesis is that yes, we're going to see Bitcoin trading higher in 2026. I don't think that we're headed towards recession. I think we're headed towards normalization. You have this very important level. This is also coming in at 88,000. This has held through the Japanese yen unwind. This has held through the launch of the Bitcoin ETF shakeout. If that level of that structural trend line were to break, and that's a de-risk event, yes, at that point, there's a likelihood that we could trade lower, right? And you could see the next gap I have over here is between $78,000 and $70,000. If we were to trade below the orange line, which is just above where the election was won by the Trump administration, at that point, I think something is significantly wrong. I don't expect that's going to happen. If it were, you would need to ask yourself, what are you doing? And obviously, we'll be talking a lot about that together. Again, now, jumping back over and just getting into some of the templates. Let me jump back over here, and that's Aaron. And so let me cover stocks first. And stocks are 100% in cash. We got in cash, except for MicroStrategy, currently holding an open position 28% into profit, regardless of what my expectations are. Only thing that matters is how you position in and out of the markets. You know that Bitcoin bull runs exited up here at 113. What does that mean? For me, that's not sell your Bitcoin position. If you're trading using Bitcoin bull runs, obviously you enter and exit the market with that momentum. Some people could use an exit of Bitcoin bull runs as an opportunity to hedge their Bitcoin position. How do they do that? It could be many different ways. One of the ways we've talked about is potentially by selling leaps, right? Long dated puts, options, and maybe not doing that versus IBIT, maybe doing that versus MicroStrategy, maybe doing that versus Bitcoin miner, something that has even more volatility out there. That's an option. Exiting Bitcoin bull runs, and the reason I'm saying this is because the person that was inquiring, like, I didn't exit my position. It sounds like they're holding a long-term Bitcoin position. And I would not exit a long-term Bitcoin position when you have an exit of Bitcoin bull runs. I would be prepared mentally that momentum is waning and you could have a further downside momentum for an extended period of time until we receive those repairs and recovery. Jumping over and 107, 101, right? Jordan, I'm so surprised that the performance we've seen out of 107. And let's jump back over here, and you go to 2025. It'd be like, this is, by the way, trading both sides of the market. You say, well, I'm off 15%, right? And if you are trading buy side only, I assume that you're doing that with 101, or I assume that you're doing that with buy side boost. What about 2 years, Jordan? Like, and in 2 years, it's even worse. 13%, right? What's going on? What am I doing? It's even worse. You go to since the bottom of the bull market, right? From the very bottom of the bull market, Bitcoin is up, I don't know yet, and Bitcoin's up a lot. Bitcoin's up 500% and I'm up 86%. And then everything obviously changes, right? If you add one more year and you add 2022 in, and then you're like, oh, wait a second. I'm up 226 and Bitcoin's up 179. And I don't know what happens here from Bitcoin and whether or not it continues to move up or down. And that's true, right? You could say, well, and especially when Bitcoin's up and to the right, performance on Bitcoin during this new regime that we're in. When I say new regime, I'm talking about this diminished volatility has simply not been the same. But during those 2 years of that new regime, we have been absolutely building, working as hard as ever. And yet we are very close to something that we believe solves that. In so much right now, you look for that same period. This is from 2023, from the very bottom of the bull market, and is a significant outperformance, right? What about in 2025? Probably not really, right? 2025, you're talking about a gain of only 23%, and Bitcoin 6%. It's a significant ability within this new regime. Oh, that's 2025. That's what I wanted. What about from 2024? I I mean, listen, there's a difference between being safe and then looking for and the ability that regardless of what's happening in the market to put ourselves into this position. This is where we are. This is what we're doing, right? If there's nothing easy about it. Do I think that we're going to change and move from this new regime that we're in where Bitcoin volatility since 2022 has been significantly reduced? Yeah, I don't think so. I think that that's probably the regime that we continue in for the foreseeable future. And what I mean by that is just to point out that I believe that Bitcoin has entered a new era. And there will be certain phases here where you have those upside volatility kick in, the significant reduced drawdowns because of it on both sides. But it's not the wild swings that we saw during the hype phase or the facing reality. And it's this slow volatility walk up that we're currently in now as we've entered into that early majority. I think the odds are that we're going to continue to see a lot more of this, which, by the way, does not mean anything for like, well, does that mean that I'm trying to look for this one? Does that mean that, if we were to extend into that volatility, that we then at this point would not be able to capitalize? No, this is not even such a volatile. Let's go over here into 2020, at the beginning before the volatility struck. I mean, even in that high volatility, if that returns to Bitcoin at any point in time, obviously here V4 is able to significantly capture and way more than buy and hold. The buy side for V4 looks like this. So here's the bottom of the bull market when the bull market began, I should say, in 2023. So this is just the buy side without the sell side on V4. And right now, Phoenix Fire, as of just a few days ago, he now has the V4 release to do the back testing on buy side boost for those that trade buy side only. But even the buy side is outperforming buy and hold and the whole way up. Like here it's come off a little bit, but even when it's at its high, it's still outperforming. And the thing is like there'll be times when Bitcoin is roaring in the bliss and price discovery and trading at all-time highs, but there's lots of times that it corrects 15, 20%, 30% is absolutely normal. And then the outperformance becomes, you just don't know what is going to happen in the future. And I think if you move back a few weeks ago and you're looking in October and you're looking at what happened in like October 15th, Bitcoin at 115,000, it's hard for people to really understand the importance of knowing when to be in the market and when out. And I think that this is a wake up call that really helps people understand that, you know what, things could happen quickly. And it makes sense to have a plan that you're going to be able to execute and make sure, regardless of what happens in markets, you're going to be on the right side. Do altcoins even exist anymore? So what I mean, it's very, and we have altcoins over here. We have Ethereum, Cardano, and Solana, and they are absolutely, they outperform, right? So where we are in cycle right now is the Fed is still at elevated rates, and the Fed is just ending quantitative tightening. It's not the time for altcoins to be running. After quantitative tightening stops, balance sheet moves up. We move towards, assuming we move towards, which I believe, reacceleration. I do believe that that's probably this particular move that we're seeing right now is going to be a gift for those that are positioning into altcoins. I personally believe that. But more importantly, I believe that altcoins and much like you're seeing in the market, like where you have the Mag 7, you have these like heavy duty earners, and they're the ones that are putting up the profits. And a lot of people are like, well, how come the markets, the breath is all off and we're not seeing like, too many stocks making, these are the ones earning. These are the ones who are putting up. And it's the same thing with cryptocurrency. Like there's a gazillion different cryptocurrencies at this particular point. There are select ones that continue to outperform. There are going to always be select ones, but there will come a point in time where once again that old like speculation is rampant and altcoins are going to be having massive gains in a short window. We're just nowhere close to there. And we haven't been. And we've been saying that throughout everybody for the last 3 years, like alt season, alt season. I think so also. I personally think and have always thought that your position compared to your trading should be a small allocation. And I think it's good to dollar. I agree completely with you, Alexei. JDK, what's up, my friend? I hope you are well for sure. Always enjoy your input and insight into the markets. This is not what Banana Zone looks like. A lot of people are worried and concerned that maybe we're going to see some Japanese yen uh, unwind and spill over. So far, it looks like the yen has a date with 160 against the dollar. We'll see what happens at that point if the BOJ is able to intervene. I think the most important place ahead right now is focusing on what happens on Wednesday and then focusing on what happens Wednesday's NVIDIA's earnings and then focus on what happens with the jobs data and the beige book at the end of this month and into next month. There's one more slide that I wanted to bring up with you, and I'm having trouble finding it. So it's right over here, right? The underbelly. This will be the first opportunity to see that we're going to have any type of recovery in Bitcoin. If we're able to pierce it and break it to the upside, I think that recovery will be rather quick. No bananas. All right, y'all. We're into it. It's Monday. We're going to take it as it comes. Wednesday's obviously the next event that we're looking for. Above all, we're watching price. This could be the first close for the NASDAQ, the first technical breakdown. If that were to happen by the close of today, that puts the bears in the position where they need to consolidate those gains. And again, that might be hard to do ahead of NVIDIA, but either which way, we're going to keep at it. Glad to be here with all of you. I hope you have a beautiful day. God bless you, and I'll see you all tomorrow.